At that time, my father would call us all into the living room, and he would have us walk around a coffee table, and I'm talking about my brothers and my sister and I. And for no reason at all, my dad would whoop us, and just to hear us cry. In the 3rd grade, I didn't know how to spell tadpole, and every letter I missed, my father whooped me across my back with a leather belt. It drew blood, and the teacher rubbed my back one day, and I quenched because it hurt, and she sent me to the principal's office. But the principal called the police, and the police almost arrested my father for child abuse. But back in those days, the laws were more lenient in the South than what they are now, so they let him go. When I was around 8 or 9 years old, I didn't want to play football with my brother, and my father made me play, and I slipped and busted my head on concrete, and at the evening meal my head went into the plate, and my parents had to take me to the hospital, and I had brain surgery. They cut the jugular veins and went up there and removed the cushion from my head then. And I taught from then on to be protective about my head. So from then on, I was more cautious about it. As time went on, my family moved to Mount Clemens, Michigan when I was around 10 years old, 9 or 10. And
from where?
From Cleveland, Tennessee. And I noticed my dad beating up on my mother more. Mom would just put on makeup and try to cover the bruises. I remember her always wearing a smile. No matter what she went through, my mother always wore a smile. And it really hurt me to see what she was going through. And I grew to hate my dad. In fact, my dad asked my brother and I one time, said, "If you don't like how I treat your mom, go ahead and hit me." And my brother said, "No, I won't, Dad." And he asked me, and I hauled off and gave it to him in the face. And I said, "You have not, 'cause you asked not." So that's why I did it. I just joke about that. But May the 1st, 1973, I was 14 years old, and that week my parents' marriage was coming to a climax, and my mother told my father that she was going to get a divorce or file for the proceedings on May the 2nd. And my mother let my dad stay in the house with the understanding that he would leave the following day, which was May the 2nd. But early that morning hours, I remember waking up. I was troubled that night for some reason on. I didn't sleep too good. But I remember seeing the light on in the kitchen area different times of the night, and I thought my mom had just forgave my dad like she always has before. So around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, my father came up to my mother's bedroom, and he took the pillows and tried to smother her with it. Well, my brother and I, we ran into the bedroom and tried to stop it like we had done before. And this time was different. My father took a baseball bat in the corner and started busting my mother over the head and the face and the upper body, and or just the body in whole with a baseball bat. And then he turned and busted my brother's head open. Then he busted my head open, ran me down the stairs and trapped me in the kitchen corner. And by this time my head was just gushing blood, and my father trapped me in the kitchen corner, and I threw my arms up to protect my head because I was very worried about my head a little bit because of the hits that my father brought to my head. And so my brother and I wound up running out the kitchen door, and my brother said that my mom would die, and I said, "No, Alan." I said, "Mom has came through everything else, and she would come through this too," because I was confident that, you know, Mom always came through everything and she'd come through this too. But we ran up the road, and people would not let us in their house at 5 o'clock in the morning, all bleeding in our underwear. So I mean, they just didn't let us in the house then. But they did call the police, and the police came, and my father was in the back seat, and they put Alan on one side of my father and me on the other side. And my dad said that he loved us, and Alan said, "Well, you know, if you loved us, Dad, why'd you do this? And my dad said, to save us from going to hell. And I said at 14 years old, if he goes heaven, I'd go to hell. And I was rather bitter about it. And but I didn't know what happened to Mom or anything. So they took us to the hospital, and the hospital sewed our heads up, and around 7 o'clock in the morning, two nuns came into the room, and they started talking about how good a woman my mother was. And I thought that they had just known her from her working in the hospital, because she was an interior decorator and she worked there at the hospital. And so I asked the question, is Mom alive? Because I wanted to prove Alan wrong. And so they didn't tell us right then. They kept talking. Then I asked again, is Mom alive? And the nun said, no, she isn't. And they asked, did we want to go see her? So I went to see my mother, and she was on a table, and they had the cloth over her body, and they pulled the sheet down. I remember what went through my mind is, Mom, wake up and let's go home. My head was popped out, and I was hurting. And that Friday evening, we went to see Mom in the coffin and stuff, and I couldn't stay in that room because my head was hurting. I had to go in the parlor and lay down, and people would come in, and even though I didn't know God, the love of God was definitely there at that time.